Welcome to all of you. This evening we have with us Sue Lehocky, who is the Evangelization Coordinator from the Office of Evangelization and Missionary Discipleship of the Archdiocese of Chicago.
Wow, that's a mouthful.
We've had many different speakers through the years, but none with as long a title. But Sue has 20 years of experience in evangelization and lifelong faith formation work. And as most of you have heard in one way or another, about almost 6 years ago now, the Archdiocese began a process of parish renewal. And I think all of you know the reasons why. You know that from your own family and your own friends. People aren't participating in church. People aren't finding church as relevant as they did a few generations ago. And so much of the news has been, for Renew My Church, has been about closing buildings and consolidating parishes, but that's really a preparatory to the real work of renewal and the important work of renewal, and that's what Sue's going to talk to you about tonight. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Okay, that works. It's good to be with you this evening. I've gotten to know Father Joe over the last few months and heard so much about your parish, so it's great to be here, and we'll just get started. So, of course, let's begin with prayer. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Amen.
Lord, we thank you for this new time, another time to serve you, to love you, and to grow with you. We thank you that you have called us together here tonight. We ask you to fill each and every one of us with your Holy Spirit. We ask for more of your love, more of your peace, and more of your joy. We thank you for the good you are going to do within and through our parish. Bless all those who are hearing your invitation, your call. Make clear their path and open their hearts to welcome to the love that you have for them. Thank you. Okay.
Let me,
Okay.
let me turn it a little bit more toward you.
Okay. Thank you. So, let's start with the why. So, Father Joe mentioned what the Archdiocese and the parishes are going through right now, and I'm sure you've heard about Renew My Church. But let's just talk about why for a little bit. So, our world is rapidly changing, and I think we all know that. It used to be that people focused on the we and community. There were support systems that had high levels of social capital. And there was a high level of trust in institutions. And the church community was actually central to faith. But now, the culture has shifted dramatically. The culture is individualistic. We have high levels of loneliness, isolation, and even before COVID-19, depression and anxiety, very low social capital. You know, people are just lonely. And this attitude of, I have to take care of myself because no one else is going to take care of me. And most importantly, there's a very low trust of institutions. And there's growing evidence to show that the lack of religion, meaning community-based faith, is leading to this increase. So, and also through the lens of faith, if we look at it through the lens of faith, what was in place for so many years was this age of Christendom. The culture was more Christian, was open to faith, and enabled people to live out their faith. And religion was recognized as an avenue to the spiritual life. And come to today, I don't know if you've seen this in your families or in the people you know, but Today, the culture is more secular. It's actually ambivalent to faith, and sometimes even dissuades people to live out their faith. And it undermines religion as an avenue for spiritual life. And we're calling this a new missionary age. So the challenge we face, just a few statistics here, 85% of 8th graders stop practicing the faith by age 23. So that means 2 of 10 Catholics, Catholic 8th graders are practicing Catholics. And 83% of millennials do not attend Mass weekly. Do you guys have any millennials in your lives? I have a couple, and yeah. And the 52% of those who were raised Catholic have left the church at some point. And the fastest growing religious affiliation in our country is called none. People who claim none as their affiliation. 40% of people under the age of 35 claim no faith at all. And our old ways don't work. The old ways of passing on the faith aren't reaching our younger generations, nor those outside the parish. Our formation programs and activities were created for a different age, a different time. They're not built to respond creatively to the needs of current generations. And also, our masses and liturgies can be very mysterious indeed to anyone without any prior experience of the Catholic faith. I've heard people say their kids are coming into Mass and they don't know, all the new, well, it's not new anymore, but the responses and all of that, and it's all very mysterious. So for many people who are more in the beginning stages of faith, or not committed to faith, the liturgy is not the best starting point. And the key here is starting point for an introduction to faith. So, sorry about all that. I know that's kind of a downer. There's a little bit of good news here. So, 50% of lapsed Christians are curious about who God is. 35% are interested to learn more about Christianity and what it could mean for their lives. So that's millennial non-Christians. So given the context of everything we just talked about, that's pretty good, I would say. So also, those that are more engaged do recognize the impact of faith in their lives. The further one is from religion, the more likely they are to feel lonely, isolated, judged, uncertain about the future, depressed, less secure, and less cared for. So we know that the community orientation of religion really plays a role in what a lot of the people are encountering today, a lot of what's going on inside of people. And I think that really gives us hope. But we have some unique challenges. Our formation programs and activities were created for another time. Many parishes are spending most of their resources simply keeping the physical structures and cannot afford the staff that it takes for the mission of making disciples. The cost of operating parishes has severely outpaced the rate of giving by parishioners in many parishes. And we all know that priests are retiring at numbers not matched by the men being ordained. And so we're leaving parishes without future priests. Still have good news though, I'll tell you. Research has shown that the primary reason people leave the church is not because of Catholic doctrine. So this may be a surprise. I'm sure people will argue about this. It's not about doctrine or disagreement on church teaching. It's because they never felt welcome. They did not experience a profound and personal encounter with Christ, or did not find opportunities for the missionary work or for meaningful spiritual growth. And so Pope Francis, we're getting our inspiration from him. He is calling us to work toward a renewed model of parish, a missionary option he dreams of that is capable of transforming everything. Our customs, our way of doing things, our times and schedules, our languages and structures, and that they should be suitably channeled for the evangelization of today's world, rather than for self-preservation. And that comes from Evangelization. So, we have Renew My Church. Renew My Church, as Father said, started a few years ago. Really, parishes started getting involved in the spiritual phase of Renew My Church beginning in 2019, and it started slowly. I just happened to work in a parish that was part of the pilot, and so that was pretty interesting. But the way this developed is there was a collaboration and detailed research that was done. They studied what has worked in transformed parishes throughout the world, and they learned what works to build up the church. So research showed us that we need to think about faith for those exploring and seeking answers to the fundamental questions about the meaning of life, the presence of God in the world, and the role of the church. So people in those younger generations, millennials, I guess we'll, blame them at this moment or put a target. And I have two children who are in that category. They're asking questions, but they're still looking for something meaningful. So knowing that, the vision of Renew My Church: make disciples, build communities, and inspire witnesses. So there's one part of the vision. In more detail, these are 5 areas that are really important in this new phase of Renew My Church, which is called Building a New Reality. So we need to offer new entry points outside of Mass. We need to commit to a culture of radical hospitality. And we need for our liturgies to be vibrant and transformative with excellent music, engaging homilies, and a focus on Christ. And we need to create faith formation that meets people where they are, rather than being simply age-based, with programs and family catechesis that are holistic and centered and focused on unifying families and faith. And one more thing about the culture of radical hospitality. When we talk about that, it's not greeters, ushers, and all of that. It's creating a spiritual family where people feel welcomed, noticed, valued, and embraced. So, kind of a tall order. And the shorter vision of renewal, the goal, is a local church fully alive, with parish communities brimming with the joy of serving Christ. So renewal is happening. As I said, there were a few parishes that started in 2019. 2020 brought kind of a slowdown where some of this really had to take kind of a back seat, but Going into 2001, once things were kind of more open, parishes quickly got back into it. So renewal is happening here in the Archdiocese. And so I have a video. Okay. Just play it. Yes. Yes. Thank you. Okay.
There are a number of ways we can tell our evangelization efforts are working. Simply by the numbers. We've seen our October count increase each year for the last 4 years. We've all seen our collection increase for the last 4 years. I'm seeing it also in one-on-one conversations with parishioners, hearing parishioners sharing their faith with one another, getting comfortable praying with one another, and inviting people to come and participate in programs like Alpha, the marriage course, the parenting course. We're getting involved in our Bible studies, seeing all these different programs grow, parishioners reaching out, inviting people in, and the parishioners taking on the leadership of these programs. That's what's great to see. It's disciples making disciples. One of my favorite stories about that is just a couple months ago, I had a parishioner come up to me who asked, "What did you do to my husband?" Why she asked it was, they're doing the Alpha marriage course together. And so about third or fourth episode in, there's a moment where they ask the spouses to turn to each other and ask, "Is there something I can do for you? Or is there something you'd like me to pray for?" And so she naturally assumed her husband just asked, "What can I do for you?" But instead he asked, "Oh, is there anything you'd like me to pray for?" She thought and she came up with something. Then he just started praying for her, praying out loud right there in the moment. She's like, and it was good. He was praying from the heart. I couldn't believe that. They've been married for about 20 years. She said they had never prayed like that before in their life. And this is a couple who always went to Sunday Mass together, always brought the kids with them. That just wasn't part of their faith life. If they talked about their faith, it was more simply, "Oh, what did you think of the homily this Sunday?" And so why this radical change in her husband? Well, she had gone on Alpha. She did our very first Alpha, and so she's been a big promoter for us, encouraging other friends, other parishioners to get involved. And so finally, after hearing about this for about 1.5 years, he decided to join our last Alpha, about our 4th season of Alpha. And he loved it. He had a great time with it, sharing his faith with other people. And so that's brought about this great change in this comfort in sharing his faith with others. And he so enjoyed it that he's actually coming back to be a team leader on our upcoming Alpha. I'm seeing my parishioners understand more and more this call to be a missionary disciple. That it's not enough just to come to Mass on Sunday, but if we want to see the church grow, if we want to make sure that our faith gets handed on to our children and to others, we have to be disciples that go out and invite people into this encounter with Jesus Christ, to invite them into the Mass, into Alpha, into these different programs, so that we can really renew our church together. It's on all of us.
So that's St. Josephat Parish in Lincoln Park. Through new mission-focused methods, focusing on helping others to encounter Jesus. Whoops. Helping others to encounter Jesus and the good news he brings. So that's kind of what it's all about in this phase of Renew My Church. A number of other parishes have been at it for a while, maybe 2 years, 3 years, and they have told us that there's a new energy. They're seeing a new energy in their parish. The parish is more welcoming. They have a stronger sense of community. There's an increased sense of belonging, and they're even seeing young families come back to Mass. Increased noise in the church. That's a sign of something great going on, right? And some parishes are actually reaching out and inviting couples who got married or had their child baptized. They're inviting them into something. And at something, you're going to hear a lot about Alpha, I think. So Alpha is a program that kind of is the beginning of this evangelization phase of Renew My Church. So it's something that focuses on the basic message of Jesus, but it does so in a way where people feel very welcomed, they have fun, they're in small groups discussing, and it's just been very successful at many places in the Archdiocese. And also, there's more comfort with prayer. That's another thing. So I have a little exercise for you. So I'm going to present a case study, and I'm going to ask you to just kind of join with another couple people and talk about it for a few minutes. Okay. Okay. So I'll introduce you to Kathy. Kathy has been away from church for several years. When she was younger, she really believed in Jesus. But when she went to college, she got out of the habit of going to Mass. And now she's married to a non-Catholic, and they have 2 small children. Life has gotten kind of hard lately for her, and she longs for the days when her parents and siblings used to go to Mass together. She wishes she could give that sense of comfort and faith to her children, but she doesn't know where to begin. Something is urging her to go back to church. It's as if Jesus is kind of nudging her heart. One Sunday, when her husband has the kids at a soccer game, Kathy decides to go to Mass at a local parish she heard about. She hesitantly finds her way through the doors, and she's feeling God kind of tugging at her heart. Well, when she's there, she sees clusters of people chatting. It looks like a friendly place. During Mass, she struggles, though, to figure out how to follow along. She remembers parts of the liturgy, but feels very self-conscious, like everyone can tell that she's been away for a long time. The music is lovely and the homily is thoughtful, and she really feels God's presence in the church. She hears an announcement about coffee and donuts, but she doesn't know anyone and no one talks to her. She decides to introduce herself to the pastor. She approaches the pastor and shakes hands, and he greets her with a good morning and a smile, but doesn't acknowledge she is new to the community. And I do have to say, that's a lot to expect of a pastor, to know when everyone is new to the community, so keeping that in mind. And finally, Kathy goes to Mass a few more times, but she doesn't feel like she belongs. She recognizes that the parishioners there seem like nice people, but she realizes she's an outsider. Besides, she has children who need her at home, and she works full-time. She really feels she shouldn't take time away from her ailing mother or miss her kids' soccer games anyway. She tried, but maybe that thing in her heart wasn't real after all. So here are your discussion questions. Do you think your parish has Kathys who walk through the doors? How would Kathy experience your parish? Through her eyes, how would she describe the welcoming and hospitality in your parish? Would she be invited into the community? If so, how? And maybe where do you see weaknesses in your parish in meeting the needs of the Kathys in your midst? So we'll take about 10 minutes and we'll leave the questions up here. Look at this. So this is kind of what we're working towards, is a place where there's energy, where you can just feel that energy. And you heard us mention Alpha. And Alpha is what we call a soft entry point. So it's an entry point outside of the Mass where people can come and they're assured that if they just have questions, they won't be judged. It's not about teaching, it's really just about presenting some things, which is done with some great videos. And then there's small group discussion, and people really come out of there with this sense of belonging, and they love their small groups. So it is really a part of what your parish will be doing. As I understand it, you've chosen Alpha, right? Yeah. And so the Alpha can give people this initial encounter with God and help them to kind of see the joy of community. So the whole process is not just about Alpha. There's many stages. So I know our office has been working with Father Joe and with Beth, and there's a plan that we present that helps, it's over a few years, and it's going to take years. So it will take a while to get to do a lot of these things, as you know. But you'd be surprised. Things start happening, and time kind of, you look back and say, wow, I can't believe it's been a couple of years we've been doing this. And once again, Pope Francis lets us know, tells us that one of the great challenges facing the church in this generation is to foster in the faithful a sense of personal responsibility for the church's mission, and to enable them to fulfill that responsibility as missionary disciples and as a leaven for the gospel in our world. And so we work with you on that, and we help you with this. I missed this. Okay. So, the path forward. So, it's not going to be easy. You may be called to let go of some of what is. Maybe not, but maybe so. And renewal depends on each of us. So, disciples, which I'm sure most of you are, who just after hearing some of this vision, you feel that fire starting, or that excitement, and having people collaborate with the pastor and with Beth in building the parish community and in serving others in need. So this renewal really depends on parishioners taking up the call to co-responsibility alongside the pastor and staff. And the evangelization, or sharing of the faith, while not always comfortable, is really the only way forward to address all of those issues that we saw, that we talked about in the beginning. And of course, it may sound daunting, right? It may sound quite daunting, but we know in the gospel in Matthew tells us, for human beings, this is impossible, but for God, all things are possible. And if we have eyes to see and ears to hear, we will perceive God at work in this very moment. So, before, do you have any questions about any of this? Anything that I've said?
Could you explain more about Alpha for people who don't know what that process is?
Sure. So Alpha is a course that you offer, and you start with a pilot. So you start with kind of a smaller group, and you have a pilot. Do you have any plans for a pilot?
Yeah, we would do a pilot this fall.
This fall, okay. So the pilot is kind of by invitation, and it's for people to experience it before you go out and invite the whole parish. So it was developed in the UK in a Anglican church, and it's been fully endorsed by the bishops, and they're even in some of the videos, the Cantalamera, the papal preacher. He's in a lot of the videos. Yeah. So, because once people come and experience it, they want to come back, most. So It starts with a, very welcoming and a meal like you had tonight, and then a video is shown that has some teaching on the Christian faith. And then you go into small groups for these discussions. There are hosts and helpers who are kind of the leaders of the small group, but really they're more like facilitators. They just encourage people and keep things moving. It's the people in the group that we want to share their thoughts on the video. So we don't teach them anything in the small group, and they go home. And so it builds on itself, and it's really beautiful. So I've participated in like 6 alphas, and it's just, every time it's wonderful. People get excited about it. Does that explain it? You can also go to their website, alphausa.org, and that might tell you a little more. Father Joe, did you want to?
No, I
Okay.
see if there's any other questions, or, well, if not, thank you very much.
Thank you.